I like to say great evening. Every day is great when we wake up. It's not just good. My name is Dr. Demario Strickland. I am the proud superintendent of the Mount Vernon City School District, and I am very happy to present the draft budget for the 2026-2027 school year. A caveat, the governor's run, or the final run, has not been passed, so therefore we do not know the actual numbers that are coming towards the district. I just want to make that very clear, but once that happens, we can firm things up and then we present an actual budget to the community, to the stakeholders. I always love to bring the kids in the room. It's just one thing about me, everything is about the children, okay? I was reflecting on my last budget presentation, and one of the things that I failed to do were to tell you sort of where the district is going. And part of that is, what do I actually bring to this district? It is very important for you all to understand that as I make my decisions, I do so primarily on these 5 pillars, okay? I do believe every child has unlimited potential. It does not matter who, what, where, why, what color they are, if they have a disability, if they're an English language learner. Every child has unlimited potential. Second, literacy is the key to unlocking a child's future. The quality of teaching determines the quality of learning. Strong relationships create strong outcomes. And then finally, which is very true for Mount Vernon, a child's zip code should not determine their future, okay? So when I'm making decisions, you better believe that I am using these core beliefs to ground myself in my decision-making. And I just need to apologize. I got some little respiratory stuff going on. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna get through this. For the Mount Vernon City School District, as I came in and I started doing my listening tours, going around to the different schools, I met with many stakeholder groups and just told them to talk to me. I didn't ask much. I didn't come in here acting like I knew everything, but people were telling me a lot. I even met with, and I was just telling a parent, I met with teachers who were exiting. And I found out information about why were they exiting, because retention is huge in a district like ours. And once I triangulated all the data, I came up with these foundational pillars that will also help to guide the work that I do. Student-centered excellence. I'm always about students at the center of everything, every decision that is made in our district. High quality instruction and innovation. I am the curriculum nerd. I just know when something is not hitting the mark. I know when we have to do better with our curriculum resources. And we are working on that diligently to really up the ante with high quality instructional materials for our babies. Inclusive community and culture. You can't improve a school district without improving the culture. You can't improve the school district without including the community. Nurturing partnerships. We have so many different partnerships in Mount Vernon and Westchester County. And my goal is to actually start to bring them together and figure out how do we lean on these individual organizations for their support for our district. My goal is literally to make sure that we are touching every person from womb to career. That means the minute a child is being conceived until we send them off into the workplace. Excellence through financial stewardship. I mean, if I could, that would be number 1, but I told you I like to start with students. Financial stewardship is huge for me. I'm looking at efficiencies, I'm looking at how we are utilizing certain budget areas and prioritizing the students before anything. And then finally, sustainable operations and systems. Our district has been lacking a lot of systems. Standard operation procedures are obsolete. We're basically building things from the ground up, and that takes a lot of work. Putting procedures in place for how we do things will help every single one of those other pillars. And we must have a foundational framework within our classrooms, and that's what I call GEMS. The G is growth and grade level content. Every student must have access to grade level content, no matter what. Unless they're a student that has a cognitive disability, every student has a right to have access to grade level content. Too often, the first thing we do is go towards remediation, and we need to not do that. We need to provide tier 1 instruction for all of our learners and then begin the scaffold so that every student has access to grade level instruction. E stands for empowered and engaged learners. So if I was teaching, I would not be doing all this talking at you. I would be doing tables, workshops, and things of that nature. I'm not going to sit up here and preach, but we would really get engaged together because that's how students learn best. They actually learn better from each other. We want to see how that looks in the classroom. Mastery of students, mastery of thinking and learning, actually knowing if students are truly learning that grade level content is very important. If you are teaching at grade level, but the assignment is below level, you are not teaching at grade level. And the students are not learning at high levels. And then finally, success measured through progress. I'm all about data, but then I'm all about what are we doing about the data, okay? Collecting data is great, but it's about what are we doing with the data to make our school system better. These are the goals that I put forth for our school district. So currently, you may not know, you may know that if a child is not reading at grade level by grade 3, they are likely to drop out. That number last year was 48%. I am pushing every school to increase by 5% because I want a 5% increase overall for our district to move from 48% to 53%. Now, you're probably like, well, 53% is not a lot. Yeah, you're right, because 47% of those students are still not reading at grade level, and that's a problem for me. However, I put the bar higher at 5%, hoping to get 3, because we know the research says 3% gets you sustainable change. That means things are moving in the right direction. When you go from 48 to 58, you're like, uh-oh, we got some problems, we might backtrack, okay? Grade 5, why grade 5? In math, if a child is not proficient at grade level, at grade 5, they will likely not be able to pass one of the gatekeeper classes, which is algebra. And algebra is honestly what causes many of our students, algebra and biology, which are now both reading tests, they are causing our students not to graduate on time or to drop out. The percentage of 9th grade students, they need 5 or more credits that first year. If they don't get 5 or more credits that first year, they're likely to fall behind right away, which means that they don't graduate within the 4 years. And then finally, how every single district is measured, graduation rate, moving that graduation rate from 79% to 84%. Yes, some of the goals are very far-fetched. There were some gains last year. There could be some setbacks because there's a lot of new changes that are happening, but please believe that we will continue to adjust the goals and make sure that we keep our principals, our teachers, our staff aware of what those priority goals are. Now, I'm really going to get into budget. So I am only giving you the general fund. And the general fund is comprised of three different sources of funding. The largest one being 53% taxes. That's any small city school district. They must levy taxes in order to have a budget. 44.4% of our funding comes from state education department, and that's based on per pupil enrollment, okay? And then finally, we get a local, which is 2.6%, and that's the aid that we get back from the services that we use through BOCES, okay? This slide shows where, what's happening. So as you can see, there is a decrease of over $1 million in the local funds because we've been able to cut back on different items that we've gotten through BOCES that we're not utilizing. So we cut that from the budget because it's just money out the door. We cut duplicative programs, things that are, doing the same thing. We've met with the state monitor as well as with the BOCES staff to ensure that we don't have duplicative programs. We've asked for utilization reports, and that's how we get the big drop. There was only a 1.4% change in state ed, and here's why. At first, the run came out as 2.66%, and I was a little happy. However, the state monitor was in a meeting and overheard that they were going to implement Save Harmless. Now, what Save Harmless is, normally, if you get a certain amount of enrollment for your district, they will never give you less than that amount. However, this year, they said, nope, we're going to go into over 400 districts, and we are going to give them what the basis of their enrollment is. We generally were under Save Harmless, Lord, the other one, what's it? Can't think of the other word. Hold harmless? Hold harmless, yes, hold harmless. That's where if we had 10,000 students, we would always get funding for 10,000 students no matter what. But that's not going to be the case, possibly. We are fortunate that the legislators, the Senate and the Assembly, put forth their one House bills, and they said, no, Hochul, we need to at least do 2% for each district. And I'm hoping that that actually comes to fruition because it will help support the district, in particular with our financial distress. And then finally, taxes. It's 53% of our budget, which would be a 2.4% increase at $3.5 million. That gives us an overall grand total of $276.2 million, which is a $4 million and change, or an increase of 1.5%. Some items that we know about this budget: real property taxes had to increase by 1.99%. That's what we want to levy, okay? And that's below the state cap. State foundation aid was based on 1%. So we did a very, very conservative, used a conservative percentage just in case we don't get that 2%. The other revenue sources remain stable. I went through those budgets in certain departments. I said, you gotta make do with what you have for now. as I continue to sweep and look at positions, look at efficiencies, and ensure that every single person within the district has a meaningful workload, responsibility, and are supporting our students. And then the total general revenue to increase from 276, increase to 276 from 270, and see where we can gain more efficiencies so that we can really become financially efficient. Healthcare. Everyone in the United States knows that healthcare is increasing incrementally. That's no different from Mount Vernon. It's estimated to go up about $3.4 million, which is 8.7%. Huge. Okay? Yes, there is advocacy that is happening around healthcare companies, around pharmaceuticals and the rebates and things like that. However, they just keep doing what they do. I mean, the cost is increasing. Baby boomers are in that range, so they need more care. We're helping to fund that, and this is causing everyone's healthcare to rise. Contractual cost increased from 67.7 million, or 6.1% due to charter school enrollment increases. And I will go and explain more about the charter situation later in the budget. And then finally, I told you I kept operational budgets flat, meaning if a department has $1 this year, guess what? You're getting $1 next year, okay? Until we find out what the priorities for every department are, it's just a lot to do within a 9-month time span, okay? As we were building the budget, our responsibility was by March 1st, we must submit a balanced budget to our state monitor. So what I had the budget team doing was to find out, what is our maximum tax cap? It was 2.6. I want to know from 0 all the way to 2.6 in certain increments, what it is that we would earn or gain at each percentage. To balance our budget, the number was 1.99. 1.99 was the number that would balance the budget. Now, I don't know, again, what the final state aid run will be. If it comes in more, then we're gonna revisit this process. However, I do and I have to keep stressing, the multiple years of 0% increase has hurt the district tremendously. It has hurt the district tremendously. So balancing the budget, again, the current general fund would be 276.2. The current appropriations match 276.2. Currently, reorganization of central office positions, looking at, who's doing the same job, what job can we do away with? That needs to happen. That will continue to be ongoing. There are positions that are in the academic and financial plan that we must hire for. One being bilingual education and world languages. Currently, we are out of compliance as it pertains to Part 154 regulations of the Commissioner, meaning we need to offer a viable and guaranteed program for our English language learners right now at the Spanish language level, and we do not. We have a traditional E&L program where we push in and pull out. We're supposed to be educating them in their home and native language, and then that's how they acquire the ability to speak English better, and we are not doing that. So not only are we not preparing these students for the real world of being bilingual and biliterate and bicultural, we're taking away their actual language. Hopefully they're getting it at home, but we can't assume. Very close, coming up, it's interesting. This is the first district where I've been at where I was like, whoa, Portuguese. Like, wow. And then close to that, Arabic. Okay, these are some of the programs that, I mean, we're going to tell the state, listen, if you get educators, we can try to do what we can do, but those are going to be very difficult. Again, finding efficiencies within the current budget as leveraging our title funds for gifted and talented, which is being brought back into this budget. And I am proud to say today, we have made space, but in title funds, so not the general funds, space for 9 math specialists. And that came very through and through in the budget survey, because math is an incredible need. We have the reading specialists, we don't have the math. Again, looking for efficiencies to replace staff that are not hired. If not making new positions within the general fund, using positions that are vacant, and if we need a need, we take that position. I look at how many days they were vacant, that means somebody's doing that work, and then bringing that and creating a different position. And that's what I did with the Director of Bilingual Education and World Languages. This budget already includes increases, potential increases for the Mount Vernon Administrators Group and the Civil Service Union, Employee Association. So my goal by the end of next year is to settle those 2 contracts. This is a community forum. I've actually added 2 more forums. One is going to be at Hamilton, where I'm going to be providing a translator for our Spanish-speaking families. And then another one is going to be at Centennial Baptist Church in the fellowship hall, no, upstairs in the sanctuary, just to reach as much of the community as I can possible. And we have to also remember, finally, the federal landscape is changing. We don't know what's going to happen. We can't predict what they're going to take. We already know that there's already a change to our title funds. They're not coming to us in Title 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're coming to us as title, which is it's like a block grant. And they did that because of things like DEI, and we don't fund English language learners, which is Title III. So we have to find allocations in the title to make sure we still support those initiatives. Title IV is very important. That's teacher development, teacher and administrator development. We have to appropriate nicely, and we got to make sure that we don't overspend. And I have a clear plan for our title funds so that we are good with utilizing those funds that are going to go away. Here's the important dates. You could see this on the district's website. Today was the 21st. We have already submitted our property tax report card. Again, the next big milestone would be the district hearing at 6 p.m. At the Board of Education. And then we have a board meeting after at 7. And finally, the board vote, Tuesday, May 19th. Okay, that's for trustees that will be new to the board or ones that if they run. And yeah, that happens all on Tuesday, May 19th. Now, I wanted to talk about some efficiency considerations. So a big priority, school utilization. I hear a lot about that. I hear a lot about school utilization. And these schools are not filled and so on and so forth. And I'm hearing you. However, I want to tell you that with our charters, they generally only provide integrated co-teaching and consultant teaching, meaning 2 teachers in a class, in a general education class, half of the students are with disabilities, half of them are not, which leaves students that are in self-contained classrooms, our 15-1s, our 12-1-1s, our 8-1-1s, our 6-1-1s. Those are the classes that we are left with. State regulations say that the classroom that those students also need to be in 770 square foot. Our district has a high disproportionality rate for students with disabilities in self-contained classrooms. Many of those classes don't look filled, but they have 8 students in it because that's the designation, 8-1 to 2 or 8-1-1. However, we still look at efficiencies. We're looking at how do we shape the continuum so that we can put programs at specific spaces where we can overutilize a building instead of underutilizing it. I'm almost done. Staffing alignment with enrollment trends, including how vacancies and new positions are being evaluated. So 2025-26, 48 teachers were laid off and placed on the Pell list, and 30 teacher assistants were laid off and placed on the Pell list. So as individuals leave, we've been able to call some back. Some have moved on and gotten new jobs, but those individuals continue to be priorities, and I think we had 1 principal placed on the Pell list. And again, the state monitor said no more positions, but if she puts it in her academic plan, it must be funded because there is a need. And we're looking at teacher ratios, we're dealing with that, like right yesterday, because we do know that there are still some rooms where I'm like, we need to add more students to this class or collapse schedules, whatever we have to do to be efficient. I am going to be giving charges to high school principals. We cannot run classes with less than 12 students. It's not, it's a waste. And we have to balance out our elementary classrooms. Here's some key cost drivers. Charter schools up 17.5 million. I go into more detail after. That's a 25% increase. Special education increase 40.0 million. That's an increase to 45%. Transportation, we have gained some efficiencies for transportation by removing transportation from individuals that have the ability to walk to school and only providing it to students that may be cognitively delayed or physically disabled, or their IEP may call for it for certain circumstances. Elopement is one of them that I'm thinking of. And then finally, healthcare. Those are some of the big key drivers in our district. I want to talk about charter spending. This is where it really starts hurting the district. Currently, last year, we only budgeted, or it was 697 students were budgeted for the 2 charter schools that we have in our city limits of Mount Vernon. However, there was a failure to actually increase that number because the schools have actually expanded their grade levels. Meaning, we were $3 million short. So remember those efficiencies that I was talking about with the transportation? It has to go to tuition. Next year, we're slated for 854 students. The problem with charters, I don't have problems with people that want to educate children the best they can. My issue is, if you're going to have them be open, then please fund them. Don't let the district fund them. Because we're not getting funding for 854 total students with our enrollment. We're only getting funding for the 6,500 students that we serve. And now that increase of 18 million comes from the general fund budget, our budget. So we're not educating, the school district has 854 students going somewhere else, but we have to foot the bill on 6,500 students. Now, if they gave us 7,300, which would be the two added together, we'd be fine. That is not the case. That's why it's a big hindrance for the community and the school district. That's an increase of 36.7%. That's the reality. Operational efficiencies are underway, looking at shared services, grant utilization, cost savings initiatives. We're looking at facility utilization reviews of existing buildings based on the latest building condition surveys. Our buildings are not up to standard. Our buildings are not up to 21st century standards. Yes, we have the smart boards. We had a whole tech debacle, which will not be happening next year. But we need to do better. Our facilities have to come up. Internal reviews of technology and financial systems to ensure that we are using the systems that are provided for our finances, they're operable and doing what we need them to do. And finally, we consistently are doing these special education reviews for internal services versus contracted services. The industry is tight, which means it's the ability to hire related services is becoming more and more difficult for our districts, in particular Black and brown districts, which means we have to go get those services elsewhere, which means they know that we need them, which means they're going to increase the costs. Let me remind you, I told you that we have many students that are in self-contained classrooms, which means many of those students in particular need those related services. They must have them. And this is what is happening. Looking at instructional versus administrative spending, we broke it down 139.8 million versus 43 million. Just the way things are coded, there's an increase of 2.2%, and then there is an increase of 2.0%. Now, just wanted to bring this slide to the forefront. 20% average higher home value, homes near top-rated schools. 2.5% boost in nearby home prices. 91% cite schools as a top factor. People move into communities based on how the schools are doing, how the schools perform. My goal is to create all of our schools to be excellent schools. Doesn't matter if you're from the north or the south. You should get the same high quality education, no matter what. The positive about our district, every school is a local support school for improvement, which is LSI, which is formerly good standing. And that's in spite of the significant fiscal distress of 85 that we received from the comptroller. Which means our leaders, our teachers, our teacher assistants are doing the best they can with minuscule resources. So imagine if we gave them everything they need. This would flourish. And that's all. This is the ability to, you could scan the QR code and type in the information if you have additional thoughts or what have you. We are having a Q&A on the website, so you can go to as questions come up. We answer them internally, put them up to continue to be transparent. And again, I understand that we all have different thoughts and opinions, and I respect that. And I just ask that you also understand that all the decisions that are made are based on these core beliefs. I'm standing on this. These are the core beliefs. So with that being said, if you have questions, I would ask that you come up, speak into the mic because we are streaming, and then I will do my best to answer. If I cannot answer, I will then, I will get back to you, I promise. Hello.
I'm first.
Yes, no problem.
Well, I actually have questions and probably a few thoughts. Looking at the presentation, I guess it feels a little confusing. So let me just go through my notes here. I took quite a few. We talk about the proposed budget for 25-26. However, we are almost through the school year, so I'm curious as to why we don't have a forecasted number about what we spend. Because the school year starts on, what, July 1st?
Yes, no, this is a proposed budget, 26-27.
I understand that, but you're putting out the proposed budget from last year and showing increases, right? We can go to that slide because I know I pay attention. Right? We have 25-26 adopted, right?
Yes.
And then you're talking about 26-27 projected.
Correct.
The increase of the 2.6 is off of the adopted?
Correct.
So, again, as a homeowner, I would like to know actually how much money do we spend in 25? Because we are almost through the school year, we should have a good amount of what we should be able to forecast to tell us what that number truly is. That's first and foremost. I'm a budget professional, so I always like to know what we actually spend, not what it has been budgeted and proposed, because the minute you create a budget, it's really not accurate because you actually have expenses coming in. That's number one. Number two, how many funded positions are in this position? How many funded vacant positions do you have in this budget? Is a question that I have, and is that an increase or decrease versus last year?
Decrease.
It's a decrease, okay. And then you talked about the utilization, and you talked about that there are 770 square feet of space for a community of children, I'm assuming it's special ed. Can you break down what that means? Because you talk about underutilization, but I don't know what that means, how much square footage is in the schools that we have in total? How much square footage do each one of those kids need? And are we still underutilized? Because I'm only getting one side of the picture. I don't know how much square footage we have in our community, within our classrooms, right? And if you're telling us 811 or 1211, whatever these calculations are, for 13 schools, and we're talking about 6,500 enrollment, I just need to understand what that means because it's not absolutely clear for me. So,
Sure.
and then the last thing is, what has the state monitor recommended, and how closely have you all taken into consideration what they have recommended that we implement within our budget to get us to where we need to be?
Okay. Thank you for your questions. I don't know why it went like that. So when I talk about space utilization, if a school can actually hold 1,000 students, that means that a certain amount of students can go in each class. However, I can't necessarily use those classes for that percentage, that number of students, because I am operating a self-contained classroom, which is a full-size classroom for whatever their diagnosis is. So when I say 611, I'm talking about students who may be wheelchair-bound, students who have feeding tubes, students that need a TA all day with them because of the fact that they are unable to feed themselves and wipe themselves. 811, those are students that have emotional irregularities at times, but they're cognitively very intelligent, but they still need only 7 others in the classroom, and they are taking that space away from a classroom of 25. So that's what I mean by school utilization, and that, for instance, I think, Dr. White, how many self-contained classrooms do you have here? 6 self-contained classrooms of our most medically fragile. 6, 1, you're, okay, 5 812s, 1 1212. That means instead of, and those are the regulation size classes, I could have fit 25 students in that classroom, but I can't because we want to make sure that special education is represented in all of our schools. So when I say, you know, we might have 1,000 students or space for 1,000 students, but we really only have 600, a lot of those spaces are taken up by self-contained classrooms. So that's what I mean.
I understand that that's what you mean.
Yes.
But still didn't answer the question. How much square footage does the city of Mount Vernon have in our public schools, right?
Okay, I can't tell you that off the bat. Yeah, yeah,
But I think it's information that's important for this conversation,
sure,
right?
sure.
So I'm gonna make up a number because I like to just make it easy and divide by that. So let's just say it's like 100 square feet.
Yes.
Right? These schools or these students need 40. Whatever it is, tell us what that is, because then I understand the conversation that you're having.
Sure.
But it doesn't still tell us what is still underutilized. It's not a fair it's not a comparison that I can theoretically see to be like, okay. But at the end of the day, it feels like that we have a lot of schools and a lot of space, and that there is still, even with the special needs, I feel like there is probably classrooms that are that space that is underutilized within the district.
Understood.
From this presentation, I am not able to tell.
Understood. And I will definitely try to find a way to present that information. I have no problem.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes. Hi.
Hi.
I like your shirt.
Oh, thank you. 2 questions and then fire off one at a time. I think to follow up around the self-contained classes, I'm trying to understand what's the point. So self-contained students are non-learning students.
Absolutely.
Parents are taxing like everything
Yes.
else. I think one, it's concerning when you use language like where this is space that you could be using for other students.
I got you.
The implications of that, these students are not entitled to the necessary space that they need, and I know that's not what you mean.
I got you.
I would just think about the language, but 2, what is the solution? Are you saying that they're in a classroom that's too big? Where are they gonna go? I don't understand when you say these spaces are being underutilized. How are they being underutilized when these kids are actually in an appropriate space?
And
And what is the plan?
I'm gonna be honest, I thank you for mentioning that, because you're exactly right. That is not my intention. My intention was to make the point clear. You are absolutely right, and you hit the nail on the head. Those students, which I don't even like saying those students, are entitled to that space. They're entitled to that space. And they're entitled to that space. The plan is to continue to look at where we only have 4 students in this class that are 611, and then this class has 2 students with 611. You could put those 2 over there. In some cases, we have variances in place to make sure that teachers are certificated in front of all of our students. Meaning, if it's a classroom of 6 students, we might have 7 in that room just to ensure that that 7th child has instruction. We continue to look at our continuum, and one thing about this budget, we started with our most vulnerable, our students with disabilities. That continuum was done first. Then our English language learners. What happens too often in many districts, we plan for the general education students, and then we plug in where all the students with disabilities are gonna go. And that's one thing that I said, we're not doing it like that. So the continuum is set for our students with disabilities, and now we're working on what are we doing about our general education sections and whatnot. So that's the plan. Yes, and I appreciate that, I really do.
Thanks. I heard you give an example about a high school class that may only have 16 kids, and feeling like that's a waste. When I think about
It depends.
other school districts, some of our neighboring school districts that have a lower student-to-teacher ratio than we
Yes.
do, when I think about how many parents from this community per se are paying to send their kids to those districts,
Yes.
or even the rise of or the increase in charter school enrollment. In charter school, student-teacher ratios tend to be anywhere from 13 to 16 to 1. So when I here, you consider a classroom of 16 students per se in a high school class as too small. I'm just wondering, how do we balance efficiency with student success? Because for a lot of people, they are exploring other options for many reasons, including
Yes.
smaller class sizes.
Yes.
So that their kids can get more support.
Honestly, I would love if I could have classes under 20. However, the funds that I'm working with, I can't have classes under 20, and I have to be efficient. The cost of success is expensive. That's why you have these private schools, they're charging $70,000 in tuition to get classes of 5 people. And then some places are levying taxes 5.6% and higher. When I saw that, I said, what in the world? They are doing those things. So I hear you. I want to be a class of 20, like I would love for K1, 2 to be 20 and less, period. I do believe in that. But when you're talking about efficiency in a fiscally distressed district, it is very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Okay.
I get it, and so I understand that you're working, trying to do the best you can with that.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it just feels like it's a cycle that it's broken.
Yeah.
So this is more my comment. You know, when I think about, not to make this personal, but when I think about my son's class last year where he had about 26 students in class, he has an IEP, I don't know how many other kids in their class have an IEP that require certain classroom supports
Yes.
that one teacher is supposed to do in a class of that size. You know, it gets really difficult, right? When the IEP says to refocus and redirect the child. Well, how do you do that when there's 26, 27 kids in one
Understood.
class? And multiple kids have different needs that one classroom teacher is supposed to do because we can't afford ICT. You know? So it just becomes this perpetual cycle of a lack of ability to have student success, which then just drives more people away, and then we just end up in the same cycle. So
Yes.
I hear you, but I think there's still a tension that is unsettled.
Of course. Well, rest assured, one of my first teaching experiences was a general ed teacher in a special education, or in an integrated co-teaching classroom. So again, I lead with that. And I hear exactly what you're saying. I really do. But again, I mean, you know, it's difficult. It's like one of those things. The one thing I will say is that we are creating the SOPs for when it's time to build continuums in schools, so that every year we are making sure that we begin at this time starting to think about our special education students. And the hope and the goal is, through my time here, and I hope it's for a while, honestly, I am not one of those flight here and there everywhere. I'm not. I want to see that we are flourishing in all areas, period. And then when I'm gone, I want to see that the systems I set up are sustained. They're here. It's in writing. It's a manual. People know how to do things. The reasons why we're in the states we're in is because of this perpetual turnover. Perpetual turnover. And I tell people, you have someone you're looking at that wants to be here for children. Don't hurt me, hold me accountable. Okay, there's two differences. Don't hurt me, hold me accountable. Okay, because I'm here for it. Before I was, she was next. She was, oh, okay, all right.
So, yeah, I have a couple of questions to add on to Green's. I mean, I know you're a doctor, you have a PhD.
EDD.
ADD?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, when you put up here that classroom can be 27-1 and 6-1, 8-1, whatever, nobody has a problem with kids having access to it.
Of course.
The question is, that is a detail, it's meaningless dribble out of context. The context is, this school, at its current usage, could utilize these ratios of special ed versus regular,
Yes.
could facilitate 700 children.
Correct.
It only has 260. So I know that Close Parker, it only had 11 children in the entire 7th grade. Now that sounds to me like a depressing, post-apocalyptic place to grow up, where you only have 10 kids in your grade you're being friends with. You only have 10 other kids.
Yes.
So teachers having to go to 3 different schools to teach because they're running out of children to teach. That is absurd.
Okay.
And people that actually care about their babies and care about their education,
They want them to socialize.
should be living. Because instead, we have a $42,000 cost per pupil, the highest in Westchester, maybe the highest in the state. So the idea that you don't have money is ludicrous. The idea is that instead of spending the money on the children and their education, which they should be the best education,
Absolutely.
we are maintaining old, dilapidated schools that are underutilized and paying redundant staff and redundant costs instead of selling or developing or building new schools. Yonkers created a $2.4 billion levy, remodeled 39 schools, built 3 new ones. Where I grew up, every school I grew up with was an old piece of crap, not a nice one like this, like an old piece of crap. They're all new. I went back to where I grew up, none of the schools exist. And so what people want to see is, instead of saying, hey, $400 million for schools need to be repaired, no, those schools need to be torn down. It's $80 million a school, and Yonkers had 5 brand new schools.
Yeah.
And so what people want to see is, we're 4 square miles, we have 6,500 kids, we have 13 schools there. New Rochelle has 16 square miles, they have 10,000 kids, almost they have 10 schools. It doesn't add up, and I know there's a lot of kids, but people want to see actual numbers. Because if I put that in my dissertation, or I put that in my high school paper, a fact like that, out of context, to justify an argument that, hey, people say we're underutilized and we can't close more schools, and then just give a random fact out of context, I can get in that. I would say, give me supporting evidence.
Sure.
And give me further, flesh that out. And when I don't see that, when I see a 30-foot tree on this corner, that one of the neighbors has had to write letters to the school in the city for years, totally dead, is going to hurt someone, is going to fall over. It's 30-foot tall tree right in the corner. When we can barely get people to cut the grass in the school when we ride by, it's called the district. The grass is 2 feet tall. People don't maintain it. People live across the street say the lights in the school are left on. I just tried to use the drinking fountain. It doesn't work. You know, well, why would I say, hey, you know the solution is give them more money? $42,000 a head is a lot of money. I say, well, who's making the hard decisions? It's a hard decision. To hire you and get rid of the other person is a hard decision. I think you're a smart guy, and I think you care a lot about kids and education. To close schools was a hard decision. But it seems like instead of making a hard decision going further, it's like, let's make the public make hard decisions. Raise their taxes so they have to decide whether they can take a vacation, whether they can afford their property tax bill when they have to sell their home building, or whether they can afford a new car, or they can afford medical care, or they have to pay their taxes. And I think that some of it is kind of out of context. And the other thing is the charter schools, you may have 900 of them, but it looks like you're sending them about 18,000 per student.
No, 18,000 more.
18 million, almost 1,000, about 18,000 per student. Our budget is 42,000 per student, so I think you're only sending them the amount of the property tax that is collected for them. It's not the actual.
The state rate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. So there's a lot, and again, committed to transparency. I will definitely find a way to put the utilization on the actual website. That's no problem. I have no problem with that. Thank you. Hey.
Okay, a few different things. So
Yes.
for the utilization, and just jumping off that point, it totally made sense to me to close a bunch of schools to that point, just because they were, for the number of kids in our district,
Yes.
what we had didn't make any sense. So I guess my one question is this space at a point that makes sense, or is there still too many buildings or too many classrooms? I'm not talking about the modern ones, I'm just like, are they empty? Because I also think, to your point, I've got two kids at the STEAM high school and one that graduated last year. And I've been at the parent involvement day the last few years, and part of it is you go from class to class and like see classes in action. And I gotta say, I was extremely impressed the last 3 years with every single teacher and every class, and I
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
I want to say hats off to the teachers.
Yes.
I think most of them are doing a great or amazing job.
Agreed.
For all of the schools with what they have and what they're doing.
That's you.
And so like I said, I was very impressed. But in terms of utilization, it kind of goes back. Most of the classes were at numbers that made perfect sense. Like when I usually was in them, they seemed like they were anywhere from probably 16 to 20 something in a high school, which is what you probably need for it to make any physical sense. I remember being one this year that, unless there was a lot of sick kids, I think there was like 10. It was a Spanish class, and I just remember thinking, I don't know if this is just a bad day or, but like to your point. So I do think there's a balance between, I guess, just having enough enrollment for it to make sense to pay the teacher's salary.
Correct.
And not. So like all the other ones were kind of numbers that were good, and none of them seemed too big. But that one kind of caught me. I just thought, like, hopefully there's not a lot of that going on across the board in all the schools.
Correct.
Because then you, like you said, to pay that salary, it just doesn't financially make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you bought that. And so I guess one of my questions related is, I know we were in the hole the last few years.
Yes.
Led to
Deficits.
Deficits and all sorts of things that practically, outside of the obvious things like, I'm guessing textbook technology, things that couldn't be met, all those things. The thing that really caught me last year was there was a lot of after-school programs at STEAM the prior years, and they all stopped last year. So even things that were free, like the ACE program that we've been doing that went into Manhattan, that was an amazing opportunity on grants. Didn't have money for busing, so we couldn't do it because we couldn't afford the bus. So the program itself was free, but we couldn't afford the bus.
Yeah.
So my oldest undergraduate had done it for 2 years in grade 10 and 11, and then they couldn't do it last year this year we're doing it again, and now my other 2 kids are doing it and seeing like how wonderful it is. So I guess my question is, are we at a point where fiscally we can maintain all of those things? Because I think that's another piece that nobody talks about. It's been great to have those programs
Of course.
back in play, because last year they weren't, due to the lack of money. And it was a shame, because these were all like wonderful programs that, like I said, couldn't happen. So I guess my question is, are we at a point where that can be sustained? Because I think that's an important piece, also the classroom piece. And then related to that, kind of fiscally again, does there need to be, not necessarily whole school closures, but like, I guess it's kind of all tied to that. Are we at a point where there should be more, or are we good, and can that continue? And then kind of relate to fiscal again. I know you said the teachers got a small raise, I guess.
No, we're hoping that they ratify soon.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
kind of, because
sorry.
I do think it is very hard to retain good and great teachers when they're not getting raises and they're seeing
Of course.
other boards pay 10, 20,000 more 5, 10 minutes down the road, whether it be honors or whatever. Because I've had a few, I've heard teachers make comments about how long it's been since there was any raise. So I guess my question is about, is that in their foreseeable future? And then just in terms of those other fiscal pieces.
Yeah.
And good job, teachers.
No, thank you. And I agree. Okay, multiple questions. Okay. First and foremost, the district just underwent a huge reconfiguration where students were moved, and coming into that was very difficult. Just seeing, I don't know if the plan was clear, and I don't want to, I'm not criticizing or critiquing those, but do know that I had to spend a lot of time figuring out what was happening when they closed the 3 buildings. The one thing I said, closing the 3 buildings, it affects everyone, okay? It affects definitely the people of the closed buildings. Nobody wants their building to close. And I've undergone a 11 school closure in my previous district, and that was difficult. But we had a clear and concise plan to stabilize the district. As enrollment declines, there may need to be additional hard decisions. Absolutely. We are currently looking at different models, and I have a research study that I recently got back that's proposing a different type of model that would help the district be successful, that being the Princeton model. But if you know anything about the Princeton model, that is incredibly expensive. It's incredibly expensive. That's the K2 configure 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. It's very expensive. So I have to go back out and see if someone can actually come in, look at Mount Vernon's current configuration. How can we be more efficient? And what can we do? And then from there, we should be able to probably gain more efficiencies. I got people saying 11 students in a class. I got people saying 26 too much. You see, there's always going to be both battles. Okay, that's the difficulty about this entire process, because there's one side saying one thing, another side saying another thing. But the bottom line is high quality instruction is what's most important to me. If students are getting high quality instruction, then I'm good with that. We're looking at teacher schedules to determine efficiencies, meaning if they are a secondary teacher, they should have a caseload of 5 classes at least. We were finding some weren't having 5. Some had 4, 3 in some cases. So I'm like, what are they doing the other 2 periods? Those are the things we're looking for. You might have an English 2 class with 10 kids, period 1, and that same English 2 class with 11 kids, period 7. A lot of times, We don't look for efficiencies in our high schools where we say, you can possibly, you might have to do some work, rearrange those schedules in order to have one English class be 21, you know? And then I could perhaps find a way to make teachers be itinerant where a teacher's out over here at this school, they need a teacher, they can pick up courses at this other school. I give them their travel time as per contract, and then they can go provide high quality instruction at this school. We're looking at that. I promise you, I'm looking at every single, you name it, I'm looking at it. It's been a lot of work, but I'm here for it because I'm here for children. But it's a lot. It really is a lot. I echo all the things you say about our teachers. I can't tell you how proud it is to feel when you're going into a building that does need a lot of TLC, yet the teachers and assistants teaching with pride. They're teaching, because I've gone to places where they're sitting all day, or the kids are behind computers all day, and that's not the case here. That's something that I love. And I really do echo that. So again, we continue to look for those things, the efficiencies, and I want to bring back the programs. What we found is that our title fund sometimes had stuff that our general fund had. So that means we're double budgeting, which means it takes away from those programs that you're talking about. And we did clean sweeps of that, making sure there's nothing that's in both spaces, because something isn't getting utilized. And often the general fund would be utilized, the title fund wouldn't. Title fund doesn't all carry over and you lose the money. So making sure that all of our supplemental things are in title, that is important, i.e. the after-school programs, summer school is gonna be in title. Those are the things that title is for. And finally, one of the things differently that I did, I gave principals a field trip line this year. And I said, I want you to take your dollars, your operational dollars, and I want you to allocate what you have to that field trip, some of the field trip line. I gave it to them. They have the power to control what they're doing. And let's see, you know, hopefully we don't have those gaps. We don't continue to have those gaps. However, a STEAM teacher can tell you, very jolly and jovial, wonderful. She called me, she asked her principal, they had a need. Dr. Strickland was going to find a way to let those students be able to access what she wanted to provide to them. So I always am looking. I'm always looking.
She thanks you.
No, she's wonderful. But I want you to know that that's the level of my involvement. Like, seriously. Really trying to make sure kids, our students, have access, just like every one of these districts that surround us. And yes, teacher retention is huge, you know? But again, I told you, those folks, they're levying the money, and they have bank. We don't. I would love, just as I had a $285 million fund balance in previous district, love to settle at a great rate and provide a retention bonus at the end of the year. I can't even do that because then my bank account, my fund balance is depleted. And we don't know what's happening in Washington. And that actually scares me the most. We don't know what's gonna happen next. That's the reality. And I pray that we don't have a rainy day. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the information that you're sharing.
Thank you.
I have a question. I have two questions, and it's about charter schools. Is there a cutoff date regarding enrollment? So what I mean by that is, do you have a cutoff date, and does the money follow the child?
Great question. So, we're about to, state exams coming around, So you know what that means? We might see a little jolt in our enrollment, but what happens is they replace that jolt of enrollment with somebody that's on the wait list. And again, not trying to be disparaging against my educator colleagues as well. But that's what happens. They're gonna have a jolt of enrollment in our high schools right around Regents time. That's what the data is showing. The way we pay them is quarterly for the number of students that are within the boundaries of Mount Vernon. However, we have to ensure that those students actually live within our 4.4 square miles. I'm putting in safeguards to ensure that we have somebody. That means I need a person. I'm not adding a person. I'm saying what's vacant and saying, ooh, I need an attendance teacher that will just look at making sure that students from the Bronx that are going to some of those charter schools, and we're not paying for them, they're not on our rosters. Those are the things that I need to do to become more efficient, but they can continuously do it all year long. But they have the ability to say no as well. We don't say no to children. We can't say no to children, and we shouldn't.
And the other question in the aspects of charter schools, is there a cutoff in Mount Vernon for no more charter schools to be erected? I'm an educator for 30 years in New York City Department of Education. I'm in District 5, I am in Harlem, in Polo Grounds, and there is a cutoff because there are too many charter schools in our district, and our school went from 1,600 children, we are at 300 and change right now. And so that means that when you're passing by classrooms, and you see that there's 11 children in the classroom, you're saying to yourself, somebody's coming to shut the joint down, because that's what happens. And so I just wanted to know, was that, do we have that in place here, or in New York State, in New York State?
So that's something that we've been advocating on behalf of the Lower Hudson superintendents. Again, we're not saying don't fund charter schools. We're saying, New York State, if you're going to allow them, you fund the charter school. That's all. Again, it's not saying don't fund them, you fund them. And we know that there's caps in place on the amount of charter schools that can occupy an area. However, people have been going to the Board of Regents. They might say no, and they turn around the next day, they go to SUNY, and SUNY says yes, and then the school's open. So we're advocating for only the Board of Regents to be the sole authorizer of charter schools. That's something that we advocate for. I go to all of those meetings to ensure that Mount Vernon shows up. I go to every single one of those meetings that I can to make sure that we are represented, because that's a large problem. So there is a cap in the legislation, but people are going over it. So, I mean, technically they can start something up whenever they want to. They really are. They're trying to do it in Peekskill. They were trying to do it in New Rochelle. And not only that, they're not even letting the superintendent know that this is happening. They're not letting them know that there's going to be a new school that is a charter school opening up in their boundaries. They just don't let them know. They find out by happenstance, by a flyer, or just, me, if a new one came and they delivered mail, fortunately I live in Mount Vernon, I would get the mail. And I would see. Some of them, I mean, if they don't live there, it's even worse for them. They don't have a heads up, so they can't plan accordingly. But we've helped in joining them with their advocacy. And again, not saying don't fund them, because again, they're educators. They work very hard. I support anyone that cares and does well on behalf of children. But I'm saying, New York State, fund them yourself. And let us hold on to our money that we receive based off of our 6,500 students.
Come on. Do you know anything about the makeup of
They're coming from Mount Vernon. So generally, there are two schools, two charter schools that are in Mount Vernon. One is on South Side, one is on Gramerton. That's the high school? Yes, correct. We have to pay their, yes, correct.
Do you know why? I guess, sorry.
That's,
I'm just wondering if like, there's a way to sort of figure out what leads them there to try to get them back in the public.
that's why I'm trying to, I'm ramping it up. I'm trying to bring good programs into our district so that we keep our children and actually say, yes, come back. Come back. Hi. Oh,
I just have one question in terms of iReady. Is the iReady funding allocated in this budget? Or, I don't think full transparent, I'm not sure how iReady funding works, but is that allocated in this proposed budget for 26, 27? And
So-
is there any considerations for iReady?
Great question, because I've been following, trust me. Told you I'm a big curriculum nerd. And the iReady currently, the Curriculum Associates, is being funded through BOCES. So we get a return on aid from them the next year. That's how it goes with BOCES. Reading every single piece of literature that comes out very closely, because, you know, one, I don't want computers taken over for adults. In my previous place, I mean, when I tell you, they were iReadied out, like every day. Remember I said that, you know, I'm glad to see so many teachers just actively teaching. That's Mount Vernon. They are saying that, you know, we can't have them on the computers all day. And there have been some things that I've talked with iReady about that have been concerning to me. One, if I'm taking the test and all of a sudden I test at a kindergarten level and I'm in sixth grade, I'm agitated because you're giving me work at kindergarten, knowing good and well that kid may be able to access at least fourth grade, possibly. They're not going to get better if we are lowering the bar. So I am looking at what's out there in terms of diagnostics, and that's a consideration, but that budget, the BOCES budget for next year has not been settled. But do know my eyes are wide open. Every time I open something, I'm like, oh, here's another one. Like they must hear me talking about it or something. So thank you for your question. Yes, very good question. Any others? What time is it? 7:30? So 8:30 is my bedtime, just to lighten the mood. Just letting y'all know. 8:30 is the bedtime, but I'm here for it. Well, with that being said, I appreciate all of your support, showing up, you know what I mean, criticism, critique, your praise. I appreciate it all. Do know that I take every single one of your comments to heart, and I will continue to provide those deliverables that were asked as I rewatch the video. My team will watch the video to make sure that we get those important elements onto the Q&A document. I will say one more thing. The budget book this year will be electronically available, and there is a new section that will be coming in the budget book, and those are called area profiles. Area profiles are certain initiatives, programs such as Gifted and Talented that we are allocating funds to, so you can see actually, you know, Strickland is bringing back the Gifted and Talented program. This is how much it costs out of the general fund. I'm showing you that transparency because I want you to see where dollars are going with certain ticketed items. Special education has a very large, extensive area profile. So you know what the services are in the schools to give you that confidence that we are doing right by our students with disabilities. Like English language learners, same thing. I have to put those funding pieces in place. It's mandatory. It's mandatory. And it should have, I don't know what happened, I don't know. Like, we're in violation. I'm trying to hold back the Associate Commissioner of Bilingual Education and World Languages because she's gonna come in and give me a CAP, corrective action plan, and then I am gonna be diverted slightly and have to do more work that I know that needs to get done. So she's been holding off, saying, Strickland, do your thing, and let me know when I need to come in so we can support our Ls. And with that being said, that's all. Thank you.